Two Broke Girls, 2011, cast, Then and Now 2026, Shocking Transformations. Back in 2011, these girls felt forever young, broke, reckless, and laughing their way through life. The diner became a second home, and the chaos felt endless. But time doesn't freeze for punchlines. By 2026, what shocks most isn't how they look now, but the lives they chose when the cameras stopped rolling. Because once the laughter faded, Two Broke Girls became a story about growing up the hard way. Jennifer Coolidge as Sophie Kaczynski. Sophie Kaczynski burst onto the diner scene with confidence and curves, a larger-than-life presence that felt like a punchline turned persona. For Jennifer Coolidge, that energy masked years of being overlooked, even as she became instantly recognizable to audiences in her late 40s. The shift came slowly, not through scandal but patience, as she refused to chase youth-driven roles and waited for the industry to catch up. By the mid-2000s, acclaim finally arrived, with award-winning performances that reframed her image from comic relief to cultural icon. The accent, the bravado, the fearless humor still trigger instant memory, but success for Coolidge now means something deeper, being celebrated not for fitting in, but for lasting long enough to be undeniable. Garrett Morris as Earl Washington. Earl Washington carried weary wisdom, grounding the chaos with timing shaped by decades of survival. Long before the diner, Garrett Morris had already lived through peaks and crashes, from early fame to a near-fatal shooting that reshaped his life. By the time Two Broke Girls arrived, success no longer meant spotlight, it meant presence. Rather than retreat, Morris chose continuity, returning to television in later life as a steady, respected voice. The slow delivery, the knowing looks, the dry humor still trigger nostalgia. His journey quietly redefines success as endurance, proving that showing up, even after everything, can be its own victory. Jonathan Kite as Oleg Golishevsky. Oleg Golishevsky thrived on provocation, turning exaggerated accents and boundary-pushing jokes into instant recognition. For Jonathan Kite, that breakout came after years of stand-up and impressions, finally landing mainstream visibility in his 40s. The real challenge arrived afterward, being remembered only for shock. Rather than doubling down, Kite pivoted with intention, leaning into voice work, impression-driven comedy, and live performances that highlighted technical range over discomfort. He continued touring and creating outside the sitcom frame, choosing craft over caricature. The accent and bravado still trigger memory. But his transformation lies in restraint, proving escape from a loud role can be an artistic decision, not a retreat. Matthew Moy as Han Lee. Han Lee's nervous energy and clipped speech made him unforgettable, often blurring into stereotype under the show's fast pace. For Matthew Moy, visibility arrived early, but it came with the weight of representation few sitcoms acknowledged at the time. Rather than collapse under that pressure, he redirected it. Away from the spotlight, Moy chose creative expansion, focusing on writing, painting, and advocacy, while stepping back from constant on-screen work. The anxious gestures, the anxious smile, the rapid dialogue still trigger memory. His story reframes success as authorship, choosing to define himself instead of being defined by a role. Beth Bears as Caroline Channing. Caroline Channing embodied fallen privilege, panic wrapped in designer labels, and relentless ambition. Beth Bears reached sudden fame in her mid-20s, a rise that made the character hard to outrun once the show ended. When opportunities narrowed, she chose redirection over repetition. Bears expanded into new television work while publicly embracing mental health advocacy, equestrian therapy, and charity initiatives that reframed her visibility. Marriage and motherhood shifted her center of gravity, grounding ambition in balance rather than exposure. The high-pitched urgency still triggers memory, but her evolution as clear success became about sustainability, not recreating a moment that belonged to her 20s. Ryan Hansen as Candy Andy. Candy Andy arrived as pure optimism, a character built to be instantly lovable and instantly dismissed. For Ryan Hansen, that familiarity followed him across roles, often placing charm above depth. Instead of fighting the label, he recalibrated. Hansen leaned into ensemble comedy, producing, and voice work, understanding that longevity often lives in collaboration rather than center stage. He continued working steadily across television, choosing consistency over the pressure to break out. That wide grin still triggers memory. His success now isn't about dominance, it's about staying in the game long enough to define your own lane. Ed Quinn as Randy Walsh. Randy Walsh represented stability in a world built on chaos, a role rarely designed to last. Ed Quinn's career followed a similar pattern, peaking not through spectacle, but through dependable, long-running television work. There was no collapse to recover from, only an industry that rewards noise over reliability. Quinn leaned into that truth, continuing across network dramas while protecting a private, grounded life away from celebrity churn. The calm delivery still triggers recognition. His transformation reframes success as durability, choosing to remain employable rather than unforgettable for the wrong reasons. Mary Lynn Rajskub as Bebe. Bebe thrived on discomfort, weaponizing chaos with a grin that dared audiences to keep up. Mary Lynn Rajskub's peak never belonged to one show, but to her ability to steal moments across comedy and drama alike. The challenge wasn't collapse, it was being underestimated. She pivoted by diversifying relentlessly, moving between acting, stand-up, writing, and authorship, without chasing any single definition of fame. The nervous energy, the blunt honesty, the barely contained intensity still trigger memory. Her success now lives in range, proving relevance doesn't require center stage, only persistence and voice. Brooke Lyons as Peach Landis. Peach Landis arrived polished and privileged, a caricature of effortless success that masked insecurity. For Brooke Lyons, visibility peaked quickly as her presence aligned perfectly with early 2010s television aesthetics. What followed wasn't scandal, but retreat, as opportunities narrowed and priorities shifted. Lyons chose distance over pursuit, stepping back from acting to focus on family life and personal balance away from Hollywood pressure. The flawless hair, the entitled tone, the curated confidence still trigger memory. Her story quietly redefines success as stepping away early enough to choose peace over projection. Kat Dennings as Max Black. Max Black was built on armor sarcasm, dark eyeliner, and jokes sharp enough to keep the world at a distance. After Two Broke Girls, many expected Kat Dennings to stay locked in that defiant image, repeating the same note until it faded. Instead, her path bent quietly but decisively toward control and reinvention. She stepped away from non-stop sitcom visibility, returned to a blockbuster universe on her own terms with Marvel, and reshaped her public presence through selective roles, producing, and a carefully curated voice online. Off-screen, she embraced a more private, grounded life, including marriage to musician Andrew W.K., redefining stability on her own timeline. The blunt humor still triggers memory, but the real transformation is subtler. Dennings didn't soften Max Black, she outgrew her. In the end, Two Broke Girls wasn't really about being broke. It was about what happens when youth, luck, and momentum finally run out. Some grew stronger, some stepped away, and others discovered that survival itself was the transformation. So which journey surprised you the most, and which one felt uncomfortably familiar? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy stories where nostalgia meets real life, don't forget to subscribe for more Then and Now stories like this one.